Hey guys, welcome back to another evening in the Stormcave, where stories live and breathe and where family memories centered around those stories are cherished. I'm your host, Grant Walker, and I'm here with my co host, Janelle Schmidt. Janelle, how are you?
I am doing well. It's been a long week. We're in the middle of track season right now, so my schedule is crazy, but yeah, it's Friday.
It is Friday. I hear you. It has gotten hectic in a lot of good ways. Work has gotten very busy. And I think early on, a lot of times of reading reading the story of the Israelites going through the Exodus and all the different ways that God provided and all the different ways that they soon forgot that provision and they just crossed the Red Sea and 2 days later they're like, "Oh, we have no water, we're gonna die." And I'm trying not to be like that in my life in this new endeavor that I'm on and seeing God provide a lot of projects that are very small in scope and thinking, "Okay, well, this is like manna." Like I'm very thankful for this manna. And, it's like, man, it'd be nice to have some bigger projects and maybe a little bit less of them and so then I started thinking, well, that's like they just be like, "Well, we want steak." And so more mana comes. I'm like, "Okay, no, that's enough mana." But it's good. It's good. And Anthony was asking me the other day because she's like, "Oh, like, is work stressing you out?" I was like, "Yeah, a little bit." She's like, "Oh, is it like it?" I was like, "No, no, in like a good way. Like I'm excited about it, and I don't dread each day. It's just like, man, there's so much to accomplish, so much I want to do, and so it's just trying to prioritize and then all of the things in life. We're in the middle of baseball season, and that has been a lot of fun. It's also been, it's interesting. Little league baseball is a little different than it used to be. We grew up watching baseball, and so had just very clear general knowledge of the game, from a young age, watching the Cubs play, and we just all kind of knew the rules. And so I thought, man, this year being out of T-ball, I thought I would start as a coach, giving instructions like, hey, chin and shoulder firm to the pitch, and shorten your stride, all those
There.
like finer details. The number one thing that I'm yelling to my players is stand up, turn around. When more than
No
half of
way.
when more than half of your team comes up to you and says, "When are we gonna be done?" And I'd be like, "We haven't even started the game yet." Yes,
Oh
eight
dear.
8-year-old me would have been rather incensed
Yeah.
at the lack of passion my team had for winning the championship that we are not playing for. All that to say, life is busy, life is good.
Yeah.
Uh, Today we wanna talk about some of our favorite movies again, but specifically, we wanna talk about some of our favorite animated movies, and I don't know, Janelle, how you picked your list, and we're not gonna go through again, we can't be exhaustive because we just wouldn't stop talking, but
Ever.
we've picked a couple that we wanna just highlight, and I don't know how you picked your list because I was going off of, some of my favorite movies from when I was young, some of my favorite animated movies from probably high school, college years that we enjoyed, and then some of the ones that I really enjoy watching with my kids now, that I'm grown, and so it's kind of some of these movies I'm sure you have seen, maybe a couple you haven't, but and some of them might be, on the top 10 if you just Google top 10 animated movies, they might be on that list. But that's how I kinda was going through my list, was just kinda going through it off the top of my head, thinking of movies that throughout my long life that I have enjoyed in the animated format. So, but Janelle, how about you go first? Go first and give us one of your favorite animated movies, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was funny because I was thinking about this and I was like, okay, how do I pick my top, 3 most favorite animated movies? And it's just kinda like the titles just jumped, it's the ones that I'd be willing to watch again. It's the ones I'd be willing to watch even if my kids aren't here. So,
Yes.
that makes the list smaller. Like, there are a lot of animated films I like, but there are only a few that I'm like, "Yes, let's sit down and watch that for the 700th time."
For sure, for
So,
sure.
I think probably at the top near the top of my list, I'm not gonna say, like, these are 1, 2, and 3, so just the first one I'm gonna talk about would have to be How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just iconic for so many reasons, and, it came out I think it came out right around maybe before I even had kids, and Derek and I went and saw it in the theater, and I just absolutely fell in love. Every single beat hits just right. The animation is pretty. The story is funny, but also full of heart, and it has dragons. So, instant favorite.
Oh,
And it's just it's so sweet, and it's there's nothing objectionable in it, there's nothing crude in it, and I love that the franchise has continued that. Like, we've seen every movie, we've seen every episode of the TV shows, multiple TV shows that they've made, and it has just stayed beautiful and breathtaking and sweet and wholesome and funny without, you know, some of the eight-year-old boy humor that tends to get into, a lot of middle grade boy stories, that
absolutely.
is actually in the book series, but did not make it into the movies or the TV show, and I really
Oh.
appreciate that, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I remember seeing that in theaters, and you knew almost right away, just from the score, from the soundtrack,
Yeah.
wow, this is going to be a cinematic experience. Like
Yeah.
this is different from a lot of the cartoons that are out there, or a lot of the animated films that are out there. It is, it's beautiful. It's got some of my absolute favorite things. It has Vikings doing battle. It has dragons. It has people flying on dragons. It has people with dragons as pets, not pets, as companions,
Yeah.
and people doing battle with dragons. Like
Yes.
literally all of the best things.
All of the best things. It
All
also
set.
has, like it also has a beautiful father-son relationship and a redemption story and,
It's
like,
it's
they
infinitely
packed this
quotable.
thing.
Oh, yeah, it's
Oh,
infinitely
yes.
quotable, it has so many. I mean, how many times have we used that line? "You just need to change all of this."
You just gestured
That's
it
true at
all of
all.
me. Yes.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly, it's great.
and
It's very witty, and it's
yeah,
clever, and it has a story, and you're right.
yeah,
I was thinking that of some of the, animated films that I love, that subsequent sequels or dozens of sequels have either watered down or almost taken the original idea and turned it into something, less beautiful than it was, even though you could go back and be like, no, 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 like it's still good. It just, when you think of that series, like for example, I think of the film Ice Age. Like I love the movie Ice Age, the first one. And there's probably some of the 17 sequels are decent. I'm sure my kids all love them. But the first one was great, and the story was great, and the characters were great, and it was funny, and it was witty, and it was just, it was new. And I feel like because of the 17,000 sequels, like whenever I think of Ice Age, I just think of it's starting to slip into like Land Before Time. Whereas if you go back, you can still really enjoy that first movie. And like I said, the other ones are fine; they're entertaining. But
yeah,
that didn't happen with the How to Train Your Dragon series. I feel like every one of the films that I've seen, I don't think I've seen any of the show, but they kind of all stayed true to the same style, and
yeah,
it felt like the same effort was getting put in. Even if it didn't hit the same, it felt like they were trying to move the story forward or do
yeah,
something rather than just, well, people are paying, so let's just crank out another one, which
right.
is how some of the other sequel feel sometimes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, yeah, I think most of the TV show happens between movies 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
So all of the growing up that Hiccup does and, like, because when you see him in movie 2, he's significantly older,
He is?
and, all of that is in the, like, 7 or 8 seasons of this TV show
Oh, seriously.
that it's beautiful, and
What's the show on?
I think it's on Netflix. We own all of the DVDs. That was, like, when we first the first time we canceled Netflix because we were like, "Ah, we're paying for too many subscriptions." That was, like, the one thing that we had to do was, "Okay, can we get this on DVD?" Because we have to own them. So
Yeah.
so yeah. But yes, I believe it's on Netflix.
Yeah. No, we'll have to check that out. Is it all the same? Because I also love all the different characters that
Yes.
do even. I've always saw this in any movie, when you have little side characters who feel like fully fleshed out characters, even if they just have a couple lines, or even if it's just obvious they're there for comic relief, but they have, and then you see as the movie goes on, they kind of have their own little arcs, and you're like, man, they're putting effort into these characters. It's not just like, okay, we need the formula. So here's the hero. He needs a sidekick who's going to say three funny lines. It's, they're, anyways. So I
Yeah.
do. You love all these characters, and they all kind of bring, this just depth to the story
Yeah.
that
And they get
is
more I mean,
surprising.
all the side characters get fleshed out more in the, TV series, and they even bring in some new characters that don't make it into the movies that are some of my kids' favorite characters in the whole series, like, just I think Heather, who does never shows up in the movies, but she is Natalie's favorite,
Oh,
and
right on.
they're like, I think one of the bad guys in that series is also they're like, "That's the best bad guy." I'm like, "The bad guys in the movies are pretty good," but
Yes.
so
Well, we'll have to check
it's
that out
epic, yeah.
because we're kind of like we finished the Troll Hunters, like the main series, and we've kind of
Mhm,
been a little. I think the kids want more so to get into the wizards,
mhm.
and I've watched it and I like it. It's just it's hard because like maybe all the main characters will come back together, but they're kind of all doing their thing separately. It's one of those things where it's like, man, it's just like I love all the characters, but when they're all separate, it just isn't the same. So I haven't,
Right.
and they've watched more of that, but it would be fun to have something else to jump into. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with. I'm trying to figure out which one I was going to do first, but again, so this won't necessarily be my favorite. I'm just going to pick one. And you actually had sent me your list beforehand, and they were the top three that I had put down. So I'm going to go with
Sweet.
my first one,
Your good
and
taste.
for sake of seeming more manly, I'm going to go with this choice first because my next choice I think is an awesome movie. But anyways, we'll get to that one. So I loved growing up the Lord of the Rings animated movie. And when you talk about the Lord of the Rings animated film, there's 3 of them. There's The Hobbit, which obviously isn't Lord of the Rings, but in that same ballpark. So you have The Hobbit, and then you have The Lord of the Rings, which I think it was just called The Lord of the Rings, but it was kind of book 1, The Fellowship, and then about half of Two Towers, more or less. And then they filmed The Return of the King, but The Return of the King was filmed I don't even know if it was the same director. Originally, they had a plan to make 2 movies to cover the trilogy, and so they made the first one, and they're very different styles, and I like all of them. I like The Hobbit, and I like The Return of the King, but growing up, The Lord of the Rings was amazing because it was very different from any other cartoon that we watched because it took the source material seriously. And so there's a lot of battle sequences. I used to draw all these epic battle scenes like as a kid with orcs and the elves and the dwarves and based off of watching these movies because it just really it brought to life for me the books that we would read and the way they filmed the battles in a lot of the movies was they would actually with live actors would film these scenes and then they would go back and rotoscope or animate them in. And so it was just a really one, we loved that story. We've talked about that. But to see it, it just really kind of I'm a very visual person. Like I like to see things. And so it was really awesome to see that story come to life in a way that was serious and scary. Like the ring wraiths are terrifying and the orcs are terrifying. It's so I wouldn't recommend watching it with very young kids, although we watched it as young children. So I guess secretly I wouldn't plug it officially, but
Was the
as a 6 or
'80s.
7 it was the '80s. What a great time to be alive. We watched we watched awesome movies, and we didn't wear bike helmets, and we did drink from garden hoses, and I don't know if the results say that that was okay or not. You can come up with your own conclusion there. But I love that movie, so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun growing up, and it was one of those things that when we started thinking about the new ones coming out, I was like, "Oh, this it could be amazing," because it already kinda gave you that glimpse. So
Yep,
so that's
for
my
sure.
first on the list.
Yeah, I love that one too. I my kids have not seen that one yet. We do own it though.
It's very hard to go back, like, I mean, I still love it, but yeah, it's hard to go back when you have like, well, we could have we could have Ruth's Chris because it's here in our house, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse,
Right.
or we could have, you know,
Texas
cheeseburgers.
Roadhouse.
Texas Roadhouse.
Look
Still good, but if you have both
good.
yeah. So it
Right.
is, but if you're looking for and again, I wouldn't even say you can't use this as, like, easing into Lord of the Rings because I think it's every bit as intense as the
Yes.
actual Lord of the Rings movies. So if you're thinking, "Oh, like, my kids aren't quite ready for Lord of the Rings," they're probably not quite ready for Lord of the Rings either, because
Yeah,
that's what it is.
yeah. Well,
What do
wasn't
you
that, like, motion capture type
Yes.
animation, like,
Well, yeah,
way ahead of its time?
yeah, so the way they do it is they literally film it live, like with real actors, and then they would go back. It's called like rotoscoping, which I don't know exactly how it works, but essentially you're basically just going back and you're painting the frames and
Okay.
coloring them over.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of like great things because of the '70s. Like there's scenes in the movie, like there's a scene where I think Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli are running, and Aragorn straight trips over his sword. And they kept it in there. The guy animating it obviously saw it, but it was just, "Yeah, just yeah, you keep it in there." So, it was a 70, and it's a cool story, even if you just read the story of the production of it, I mean, the movie did well, so I'm not 100% sure why they weren't able to complete the vision,
Mm,
but I also think it wasn't quite what people expected in a lot of
yeah,
ways, maybe just from an animated film, but yeah, I we grew up loving it. And again, like I said, The Hobbit and Return of the King are definitely more geared directly towards children in terms of the animation style, the
yeah,
storytelling, and very, very true to the books, I think. But
yep,
in terms of the ones that really stuck with me, that Lord of the Rings one was, yeah, I love that one.
for sure. That one definitely stood out as, like, more like a real movie and less of a cartoon, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What do you got next on your list?
So the next thing on my list would be Tangled,
Oh yeah.
and I love this movie. I love so much about it, and it's beautiful, and when it came out, again, I got to go see it in theaters, and it took Leanna to go see it in theaters. I think she was 2, but it was just so pretty, and the music was so pretty, and the story was not at all what I was expecting. Because I mean, I love fairy tales. I grew up reading all sorts of fairy tales, and the way that they changed the story of Rapunzel made it so much better. And a lot of times when movies come in and they make a retelling or they make a story, it just turns out totally different, and it's like, "Okay, yeah, that was fine," but it's not like, Frozen, for example, is not a retelling of the Snow Queen, which is one of my favorite fairy tales ever, but it's basically, like, loosely inspired by, right? Whereas Tangled is really just such a beautiful retelling, and the things that it changed made the story better,
Mm.
but you can still see all of the elements of Rapunzel in the story. And for me, this movie was just a watershed moment because it knocked Sleeping Beauty out of first place in my
Oh,
favorite
really?
fairy tale animated movies. Like that, if up until that moment, if you'd asked me, what's your favorite, princess movie? What's your favorite animated movie? I would have said Sleeping Beauty every time. And Rapunzel, I walked out, I was like, I have a new favorite. And that does not happen very often for me.
No, I was gonna say, for our
I don't,
audience members who don't know, Chanel does have favorite things in life, and she clings very tightly to them
I
and
do.
does not like to move from that rock.
No, I don't. I'm very loyal to my favorites. I think that's why it's so hard for me to pick favorites a lot of times.
You come by that honestly. Anybody who watched our last episode, our dad and our mom both,
Yeah,
the things that they love and have shared with us have always been the things that they love. And
yeah,
I don't know if a lot of new things were introduced to us that were also new to them, other than, as we kind of went along and new things came along. But
mhm,
whether it be restaurants or food, they know what they like.
yeah,
And I think that's good.
yeah,
Sometimes
that's good.
sometimes I wish I knew what I liked. Do I like
It's
this?
like
Do I do I like pudding?
you went there. That's where I was going next.
Name that movie. Yeah, you know what's funny is that was on my list because as animated movies go, yeah, all of the things that you mentioned, it's a beautiful movie. But Flynn Rider, I mean, come
Oh,
on.
yeah,
This is
Flynn
by
Rider.
far the strangest thing I have ever done. He is for me, he just makes that movie because he's one of those characters, he's hilarious,
Yeah.
uh, he's he's full of adventure and courage and all those good things, but his character is so much deeper than that, and he goes on this journey, and he's just great. You kinda just get caught up in his charisma and charm, and then you just fall in love with the characters in that movie, and his his and Rapunzel's storylines and the way they intertwine, and, like, that whole scene where he finally brings her to the festival. That I love that whole montage
Oh, yeah.
because of the different things that are going on in each of their characters, and it's not spoken, it's just music, and they're just but you can see it, and I love that. It's
And
beautiful.
the music in that moment is
Oh,
beautiful. I
man.
mean, we always turn the sound way up. Sometimes we would just turn the movie on just to watch that scene.
You can feel it,
And
like,
yeah.
you get everything that's being said through the feeling of the scene. Again, that is I'll I will be unsubtle about how much I love the subtlety of that.
Oh, yeah.
Because the whole movie has to build to that point, so to where you can experience that. And then once you know what's going on, then yeah, you could just watch that scene by itself and know exactly what's going on and just feel the beauty of it, even if you can't put it into words.
Yep.
And in an animated movie, especially these days, like that is so rare. And so when
Yeah.
you see it, it's just, yeah, uh, I think everybody is that's making and creating art is going for that, but it's hard to deliver. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
that's a beautiful movie.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, the Tangled the series that came after is also fantastic.
Ah, I've heard you say that, and that's
And it
another
was
one
one of
I gotta
those
watch.
where I was very wary to watch it
Sure.
because so many things get ruined, like you said
Yeah.
earlier, right? It was like, I just wanna stay there where it's beautiful. But Tangled the series it's tight, it's got a very, like, "Okay, we had this much story, we made this many episodes, and then it was done," and it stays so sweet and beautiful, and while Flynn Rider is no longer the bad guy, right, the thief, he's still him, like, everything you love about Flynn Rider, he still is all of those things, and sometimes, they come across bits of his past and things that he has to kind of explain, "Yeah, I'm not this person anymore," to people that knew him back then, but yeah, it's very, very well done. So, if you love Tangled and you're like, "Oh, I just need more of that." Tangled the series is beautiful and doesn't have any garbage in it, so it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of pivoting from beautiful, witty, and charming, I wanna go to another movie that I think was on your honorable mentions, but I'm kinda looking at a few movies, and so just trying to figure out one that to go to next, but a movie that I love that is just it is witty and hilarious and unique and kind of quirky, but one that we quote in almost every situation of life is The Emperor's New Groove, and that's a movie that when it came out, like, just it's just so different. The animation style, the everything about it, the story, which maybe it comes from some well-known story, but it was just different, and I think it was almost one you had to watch a couple times because 'cause you're just not expecting it, so
Right.
you're not really prepared for what you're about to see, but that movie, I love watching with the kids, and that is one that I would watch, without the kids because it's so funny, and we quote it all the time. The one that probably the line that gets quoted the most, even though it's not one of the main lines that's funny, is the line where they're explaining it. They do these cutaways where something's trying to be explained that just happened or is happening, and they're saying, "Well, how did they beat us here? Because they were, like, on the other side, and so they're doing it," and Kronic's just, "By all accounts, it doesn't make any sense."
Right.
And so we quote that all the time, and, whenever
We do the pull the lever,
yes,
wrong lever.
wrong
Why
lever.
do we
Why do
even
we even have
have
that?
that lever?
Yes. Put that box in another box and then hit it with a hammer.
Or
Yeah.
to save on postage.
Yes. Yeah, it's hilarious, and it really doesn't have any slow moments in it. It's just from start
No.
to finish, it's just hilarious.
Yeah.
So and what is great is, as funny as it is, it has heart,
No,
and the
yeah.
heart that is there is awesome, and it has one of those really fun character dynamics where you have 2 characters who are so polar opposite that cannot stand each other.
Yep.
And they're in reality, it's like the edges of their characters get softened and they kind of go on their arcs, but they don't really change who they are. It's not like
Yep.
you can still see the same thing. So the character who, the emperor who is just this self-serving, selfish guy, he doesn't lose any of his witty comebacks or even some of his, self-aggrandizing ways. He just kind of understands where he was wrong, and he goes on that journey, but he's still that same over the top funny. Anyways, it's a lot of fun. It's one of those ones that you can just enjoy just on the surface level of it being funny and entertaining, but you can also enjoy the fact that the story has a real purpose and heart behind it that is very sweet
Yeah.
at the same time.
One of the few animated Disney movies where the family is all together
Yeah, that's
and
true.
both parents and the kids all live in the same house and nobody is dead and
Yes.
Pretty
Yes.
good. Yeah, I love that one. I saw
Yeah.
that one. It came out in theaters when I was in college, and so I went and saw it with one of my best friends who was still in high school, and then, a couple hours later, I took mom to go see it because
Ah,
I think she was the only one who was home, and I was like, "You have to see this movie," and she thought it was funny. I think she was also like, "Why did we just go
what
see that?"
is
But but she liked it.
well, one of my favorite things, about Mama is some of these things where, like, on the surface where you think, "I don't know if she liked that or not." I guarantee you that that's I don't know. Mom, you can let us know if we're wrong, but I do feel like this is the kind of movie that she would pick to watch on a given night where you would be like, "Really? That's not what I would have expected." One of
Right.
my so this is like a side trip,
Yeah. Side
but
quest.
side quest. So, one of the things that I believe about homeschooled families, us being homeschooled, is that one of the ways that the kid we all love, beautiful music, but I think we all secretly love heavy metal as well. And there's a lot of I don't know if you would even qualify them as heavy metal bands, but there's a lot of like hard rock bands that I am convinced were homeschooled. Whenever they're singing about flying away on unicorns, I'm looking at you, Glory Hammer. Or there's a song we've heard recently that I think Derek introduced us to. It's just these guys they're in their music video, they're dressed as dwarves and they're digging holes and they're talking about how they dig holes. And that's what dwarves do. And so I'm convinced that they're homeschooled. Well, anyways, I came across one of these bands that is a pretty hard rock, heavy metal band that all of their songs are about historical battles or men or women who fought in these historical battles, and they tell stories drawing a lot from like World War II. And so the music is awesome, but the stories are also awesome, and they cover a lot of stories from a lot of different countries that I was unfamiliar with, but then have gone and read those stories and it's just yeah, courage and valor. It's awesome. Well, one of the things that we like to do on road trips is listen to music. One of my favorite memories of all time was coming back from the Golden Hour music video shoot with me, Dad, Brittany, and you, Janelle, and we were just going through and we were kind of just DJing, like picking songs, and we would stick with genres, and we would just, here's a song I don't think you've heard. Here's a song we all love. We even did that with Gordon Lightfoot, where we each picked a Gordon Lightfoot song and played one. So it was really fun. And on that trip, introduced you guys, or at least dad and Brittany, to this band. And later on, dad and Brittany and mom were on a road trip and they were going across the country from Washington to Tennessee. And about probably 15 hours into the trip, Brittany texts me and says, "The moment has arrived." And I just sent back like question marks. And she said, "15 hours into our road trip, mom requested a song by Sabaton." She said, "Okay, I think I'm ready for a Sabaton song," which is I thought was amazing because
Yes.
our mom is she loves classical music and moody
Yes.
radio, which I actually love too.
Ah,
Probably more often than not, K-Love, which is kind of our version of moody radio out here in the Pacific Northwest, is on, and I love that. And so it just made me so happy to know because it just seems to confirm this idea in my heart that all
yes.
homeschoolers and homeschoolees have a little bit of hard rock hallelujah in them.
Yes. Well, you've passed the love of Glory Hammer on to basically the entire homeschool community out here because my kids love it and they've been like following like now they've like figured out the story that crosses all 4 of the albums that they have. And they love Sabaton and we love Peyton Parrish, especially when he does his Disney covers because those are hilarious and just epic. And we're like,
Yes.
"Oh, they should have done it like this in the movie."
Yes.
But
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Well,
yeah.
I do think Derek. I don't know if Derek ever tunes in, but Derek is very responsible for this because I grew up just mostly listening to country music, moody radio, and my soundtracks that I held very dear. And for
Mm.
all of high school and college, it was mostly soundtracks. But Derek came along and was the first one to introduce me to Dragon Force. So it was all downhill from there.
Well, we quote you a lot because you had introduced me to Sabaton when on that road trip, and then I came home, and a couple months later, I was like it was just one of those days where it's like, "Okay, we've got a lot of chores, and I gotta make supper, and there's this all and I just need something to kinda
Liquid
get me out of.
adrenaline, audio
Yeah,
adrenaline.
exactly. I need to be, like, in a happy place while I'm doing all of these chores, and so I
I do these
texted
things that
you.
I hate.
Right, exactly. I need my word shirt, man.
You
But anyway, I texted you and I was like, "Okay, I need to listen to something super upbeat. What are, like, a couple of other songs that Sabaton that are good?" Because I was like, "I don't know. I could look up Sabaton and listen to
did I
whatever."
send you the Sabaton starter kit?
You did. You sent that to me, and then you said I think you sent me, like, 9 song titles, and then you said, "There are more good ones, but if you listen to more than 9 Sabaton songs in a row, you will open your eyes and find yourself riding a tank through the Holy Land with a bazooka on your shoulder, ready to avenge all injustices past, present, and future."
True story. True story.
So so now whenever we introduce Sabaton to anybody, we use that quote.
It is true. It is true. I very often I very often will be listening to that station and be like, it's ti it's time to go over to my classical music channel before things go too far."
Yes.
All that being said, I don't
Emperor's
even
New
know where
Groove, man.
Emperor's New
It was
Groove.
fantastic.
Boom. It's awesome. What's next on your list?
So the next one on my list is Treasure Planet,
Ah,
and I just love that movie so much. It's so underrated, and it's, crazy to me how few people have actually seen it, and the people who
go
have
watch
seen
it.
it all agree with me that it is fantastic and you should watch it. We For school this year, we actually read Treasure Island's first time I've ever read Treasure Island,
Oh, wow.
and I can now join the masses in saying that Treasure Planet is better.
Yes.
It
I
just is. It's
don't you
the
think it's
best version of Treasure Island, and I will not be moved from this spot.
Yeah, what's funny is and I hope they don't, but I was thinking we just watched it recently, and I was like, "Man, of all of the Disney movies, the one that could be the most epic live action would be Treasure Planet," but I just don't know if they could capture the magic. I think it's one of the
Yeah,
best story retellings in any in any format, music,
yeah,
literature. It is pure adventure, and the characters, all of the elements are there, and
yeah,
man, it's fantastic. It's it's so fun and
yeah, I
so
love it.
beautiful, and
Yeah,
it's an adventure. They create a world that you would want to be a part of, and an adventure that I would love to go on. And the characters' arcs, the way Jim
mhm,
goes from the start, kind of brooding and, just
and a little lost and a little
very
broken,
lost. Yeah.
and, yeah,
And
and then
that
he goes on this adventure, and he meets these people who kinda challenge him into, okay, not just what kind of life do you wanna live, because there's the life of adventure, and you could do that as a pirate, but there's also what kind of man do you wanna be? And he sees, he sees elements of good things in both the doctor, who is kind of his mentor,
Yep.
and Long John Silver, who also kind of becomes a mentor, and he sees the things that he wants in both of them, and he sees the things that he doesn't want in both of them, and just the way that that is set side by side is just it's beautiful
Don't you
and
think
epic, and yeah.
don't you think what like, one of the things I love about the movie that, again, subtlety, is the way you have kind of the villain, Long John Silver, who is just draws people to him, right?
Mhm,
He's very he's bad. He's a bad guy. He's a pirate, like, fully pirate. But he's just got this charisma, and you can understand why people follow him. And what's interesting to me is he's the bad guy, and Jim comes in, just kind of wrestling with all these things in his life, and he is able to draw Jim from this dark place and show him purpose and, this adventure and just kinda start to draw him out. But at the same time, that relationship, Jim, coming out of this dark place and his relationship with Long John Silver starts to bring out the goodness that is inside Long John Silver. They both kind of are pulling each other
mhm.
towards the characters they end up, like, he has to decide, Captain Long John Silver has to decide, like, is he gonna stay fully pirate or is he gonna kind of drift towards good? And
Right.
just seeing the how their relationship draws each other towards the light is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, very it's just an awesome adventure, and the music is amazing,
Oh, yeah.
and the visuals are amazing. It is very underrated,
Yeah.
and if you haven't
And
seen
it's
it,
so
it's so fun with
pretty.
kids.
Like,
Yeah, it
just like you
is.
said, the visuals are
That
just
space.
gorgeous and breathtaking, and the flying spaceships, right? They're sailing ships because it's Treasure Island, but they're flying through space, and definitely, I mean, that's where I got so much of the inspiration for many of the visuals in my own Gaslamp series, the Term Archive, like, the sailing ships. I just, like, always loved that idea. It's like anyway, but yeah, just, if you're gonna watch an epic adventure with your kids, and that would be at the top of the list for sure.
Yeah, one of the things that's I especially for our generation when we were growing up, one of the things that was so awesome about animation, and nowadays we can kinda do it with live action, even though it's still really, I would say, animation in a different way. But the canvas for telling your story was your imagination, whatever you could imagine. And so that's why, sometimes you watch a movie where you have the ability to kind of, hey, whatever you can imagine, this world can be what you imagine it to be. Think about like the world in Avatar, where it's like this is just coming up with your imagination. So sometimes with an animated movie, I just think of that line from Inception, like, you shouldn't have been afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. But what I love about like a movie like Treasure Planet is like, I just imagine this room getting together, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you could windsurf in space, like, with a rocket on your surfboard, like,
Right.
wouldn't that be awesome? Like, "Yeah, let's do that." And, space battles and just the different, mechanisms of these planet or even Treasure Planet itself, the way that works and the way, it's, in the book, I don't know if the treasure has, like, those booby traps around it, but, like, the way they've rigged the entire planet to be, booby trap for anyways, just the imagination that put it together, that sparks your own imagination when you're watching it is just really, really cool, and that's what I loved a lot about animated movies, like, that was the thing, it was like The Lion King, it tells this whole story from lions' perspective, you couldn't do that
Mhm.
with real lions, and I don't even think you can really even duplicate it yet, I mean, the new Lion King, like, visually, yeah, it looks cool, but it almost feels like it might be a little harsh to say like that dead behind the eyes, but there's just it doesn't feel like there's a soul behind it like there was in the animated movie. And a lot of the newer stuff that's coming out where they're trying to, recreate past animated movies. I just think that's an element that they're either missing or that they can't get quite right. And I don't know exactly the reason for that. Maybe it's just because you've already seen it. And so you're always going to compare it to something. But yeah, with Treasure Planet, I think that that's such an awesome movie to watch as a whole family, but it is one that I would, that's I was trying to think about that. What are animated movies that I would just like, yeah, I would just watch that whether it was with my kids or not, and that would be one of them.
Yeah.
It's a great story. Great story. We like
Yeah.
we like stories a little bit.
We do, weirdly enough.
Yeah. That's probably enough because, like, it's a good one to end on. I do kinda wanna
Yeah.
mention just a couple that I had on my list. One of the ones that I wanna talk about that it just doesn't feel manly saying the title, but it's a great movie, and I don't think it's one that a lot of people have seen, and we just watched it recently because it's one that just kinda gets forgotten, but we grew up watching The Swan Princess, and
Mhm.
that is one of my favorite animated movies because it has action and adventure, and it has romance, and it just has these it's hilarious. It's got some really, really fun songs and some really pretty songs. The bad guy is awesome. Just thinking about the bad guy in that movie reminds me of Camelot, another one that,
Quest for Camelot?
Quest for Camelot,
Yeah, I love that one. I was just
which is
thinking
another
about that one
great
too.
one that I had forgotten about.
Yeah.
So for, like, really fun adventures, I love those movies, like, The
Yeah.
Swan Princess and Quest for Camelot. For just, like, really fun movies, I love Madagascar too. There I saw that one in college. It's just purely hilarious. I don't even know that it has the heart behind it that something like Emperor's New Groove has, but it's very quotable and
Yeah.
it's really funny. And I think the humor is, it's not like inappropriate humor, but it's definitely I think adults can get it and have it be more funny than my kids. Although my kids love that movie, but that's just pure fun. And
Yeah.
I really love The Rescuers Down Under. We grew up with that one
Yes.
because the bad guy is great. We quote him all the time.
I didn't make it through the 3rd grade for nothing.
I got twice the mental capacity of you pea brain. Anyway, just witty and fun and a great adventure. It's I really love those. The ones that are a little bit more, like, well known I love the movie Up. I love
Yeah.
Lion King. I really love the movie Moana, and that's one it's where
Yeah.
it's kinda like Frozen to where it's like, you almost feel like, "Man, it's just everybody's seen it a million times."
Mhm.
And there was a reason that we watched it a million times. I think the music in that movie
Mm.
is amazing. To me, it's kind of like The Greatest Showman. It's one of my favorite movies, but it was I loved it so much. I saw it so many times. It's almost like, okay, well, I gotta wait a little while. But whenever I go back and watch, it's like, that's why I loved it.
Mhm.
So those are just a couple from my list. Do you have any more that you were had on your list that we could just throw out as
Oh, yeah.
for
Well,
examples?
I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't really remember all that it was about, but the movie Leap is so beautiful, and it's like my boys like it too, like, it's about a ballerina, and I think on some posters, it's called Ballerina, so I don't even know, like, I think it might have even been like a low budget, off studio, I don't know, but
I think it was a low budget movie, but I don't know
yeah,
if you will find a more beautifully uniquely animated and
yeah.
beautifully animated movie. Like you
Yeah,
can
and
kind of
it's just
see
got a
some of the
great
parts where
story,
yeah.
and it's fun, and, like, I remember I think I watched it on a plane, and then I was like, "Oh my goodness, my whole family needs to see this," and so, like, the next day, I was like, "We're watching this movie," and everybody loved it, and, the kids all recently watched it without me, so they could come down here and tell you all what it's about. I don't remember what it's about, but a ballerina, but more than that, like, about friendship. I remember friendship being a very big key point. Another one that we just recently discovered because a friend recommended it is the movie Luck, which is a newer movie that was made by Apple. And so it's on Apple. I don't know where else you can watch it, but it's on Apple TV. But just adorable. Like, and I was telling you about this earlier, Grant. Like, I think your family would really love it. It's about this girl who is just the klutziest, most unlucky person in the world, and she finds, like, a magic penny or whatever, and then this black cat starts, like, following her, and basically the black cat is trying to get the coin away from her because he wasn't supposed to let a human get this thing, but she suddenly has great luck, and then she finds out that there's this whole world underneath the world that, like, keeps track of who has a lucky day and who has an unlucky day. It's just, like, the premise
I
is
need to go
kinda
have a word
goofy.
with those folks.
Yeah, the premise is kinda goofy, but the final, like, aha moment is, oh, kind of it's not all about, like, who's, you know, fortune or fate controlling everything, like, you have to make decisions and you have to act, and, yeah, you might not succeed or you might succeed, but it's not because, somebody is controlling your luck or whatever, um, but it's a very cute movie, and,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, so,
Yeah, well, we'll have to check that out. We'll have to check that out
yeah.
for sure. So this has been an episode talking about our favorite animated movies. We'd love it if in the comments below you posted some of your favorites because we're always looking for new movies, and so possibly you have seen some that we haven't. Certainly, this list is not exhaustive. There's many more that we love that could certainly be on this list, and I'm sure we will talk about them at some point in the future. For the sake of time, we'll end there today. But
And
let us know. Let us know some of your favorites. And this has been a lot of fun, and we look forward to our next topic for sure.
yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for joining us and sheltering in our storm cave.